What if I told you zombies are real? And the fungus that causes zombification is nastier than you can imagine. It's a parasite that feeds on its host's organs and applies a mind-controlling technique before it explodes out of the host's brain. When a little ant wanders away from its large ant family and bites onto the underside of a leaf for no obvious reason, this could mean only one thing. This ant has joined the real-life Walking Dead. What's turning ants into zombies? How can they stop this zombification from spreading before it kills the entire colony? And what other insects get their brains pickled by a deadly pathogen? Some organisms will do anything to propagate their species. In the case of the parasitic fungus cordyceps, this includes the mass production of zombies. One particular genus of cordyceps favors the carpenter ants. The fungus shamelessly possesses the ant's body, but it doesn't go for the quick kill. It needs the insect alive to provide the fungus with a means of transportation. First, the parasite sits quietly inside its host, slowly chewing on the ant's non-vital organs. But this is just a warm-up. The poor insect doesn't know what's coming until one day its internal GPS turns on, even though the ant didn't know it had one. The cordyceps has released chemicals into the ant's brain and taken control of its body. Now, guided by the parasite, the ant finds itself on the underside of a leaf. But not just any leaf. The fungus's preferred spot for reproduction is about 25 centimeters off the ground, and always pointing north. At this point, there's nothing left for the ant to do, other than sit pretty while the fungus erupts out of his head and spews its spores as widely as possible. These spores then rain down on other ants, and the gross life cycle of the fungi starts all over again. The fungus won't stop until it drives the entire colony to extinction. But some ants are able to outsmart this zombie maker. They lick their family members to get rid of the spores before they grow. And if the infection has already begun to put an ant on the goner list, fellow ants will escort the infected insect far away to keep the colony safe. Ants aren't the only victims of the mass zombification. Different genuses of cordyceps infect different species of insects, from beetles to butterflies. Even the mind-controlling fungus itself has its own fungal killer. Zombie fungi will only flourish at a certain temperature and humidity. They even need a surprisingly specific distance from the ground to reproduce. They may not have legs to move to that perfect spot themselves, but they've found a terrifyingly smart way to get around it. And that's why they're crazy creatures.
This is an insect's worst nightmare. It may be yours too after watching this. This unusual and stomach-churning parasite is a hairworm. It will take over a host and manipulate its behavior. But why? You won't believe the absolutely cruel things a hairworm does. Parasitic hairworms are part of the Nematomorpha group, which attacks insects from the inside out. What a nasty reputation. You can find them in temperate and tropical areas, in wet soil and water from lakes to puddles. They're also called horsehair worms, as people used to believe, you guessed it, that they were horsehair that came to life once it touched water.
It's alive!
Their size is impressive. They're usually about 20 centimeters long, but one species grows up to 2 meters long. After mating, male hairworms die. Females lay 15 million eggs on a stone or stick in the water, then she dies.
That's a tough break.
2 weeks later, the eggs hatch into larvae. The hairworm larvae patiently wait for other insect larvae, like mosquitoes and midges, to eat them. It's all part of their master plan. Then the host larva grows into its next life stage, carrying the hairworm along too. When a larger insect, like a cricket, beetle, or spider eats the mosquito, well, the worm has a new home. The hairworm larva penetrates through the insect's gut and into its host's body cavity. The worm grows by absorbing nutrients from its gracious host. A hairworm doesn't have a digestive tract, so it absorbs nutrients through its skin. In its mature stage, the hairworm takes control of the host insect's mind and manipulates the bug to jump into nearby water so it can mate. The worm doesn't waste any time. It makes a hole in the insect's exoskeleton and escapes. Usually, only one hairworm emerges, but up to 3 are common. Some researchers have recorded a whopping 32 worms coming out of a drowned cricket. That's gotta hurt. On a positive note for our insect friends, they don't always die after the hairworm leaves. Research shows some crickets live many months after passing the parasite. It's not entirely clear how the hairworm controls the insect's mind, but there are some interesting theories. Researchers found that hairworms alter how crickets react to light, perhaps drawing them to luminous sources like shimmering and reflective water. Researchers have also suggested that the insect's proteins change after the worm moves in. This affects the host's nervous system and its behavior. There's still much to learn about what happens and how when the dynamic duo of hairworm and host link up. The hairworm is commonly called a Gordian worm. What does that mean? Well, in 333 BCE, Alexander the Great marched his army into the city of Gordian and found the intricate Gordian knot. It was a cluster of intertwined rope, like the hairworm. Legend said that whoever could untangle the complex knot would rule Asia. After many unsuccessful tries, Alexander the Great cut the knot with his sword and went on to conquer a part of Asia. Smart, but no one likes a cheater. You'll be relieved to know that hairworms don't seek us out as hosts, so you can sleep easy tonight. Meanwhile, there's more mind control going on in the animal kingdom. Check out our video on how voodoo wasps turn caterpillars into zombies. Hijacking minds and drowning their hosts is what hairworms do. And that's what makes them crazy creatures. Nope, you're not watching footage of a new Alien movie, although that would be cool. What is happening here is stranger than fiction. Voodoo wasps will impregnate a caterpillar and its larvae will consume it from the inside out.
That's gotta hurt!
And it gets weirder from there. The term voodoo wasps refers to the 600,000 species of parasitoid wasps that come in all different shapes and colors. Some of these will literally take over a variety of hosts. These include caterpillars, which are the most common, cockroaches, and spiders. So, perfect pet if you live in New York City. However, the majority of species only target one. They can be found all across the globe. But even if they're in your backyard, it's likely you won't even see them due to their size. The largest measure less than 4 centimeters long, and the smallest can buzz through the eye of a needle. The majority are smaller than 6 millimeters, so petite yet so gruesome. That's nature for you.
Ew.
Parasitoid wasps seek out unwilling insects to use as an incubator and protection for their precious eggs. It can take 20 days for these eggs to turn into larvae. The larvae receive nutrients as they eat the unfortunate host from the inside. Talk about a one-sided relationship.
Did you ever love me or?
However, the larvae will purposely not consume any vital organs. Why, you ask? Well, to turn it into a zombie bodyguard, of course. When ready, they will use their jagged jaws to exit through the skin of the host, all while releasing chemicals that leave the victim paralyzed until they're out. The larvae spin a cocoon, waiting roughly another 12 days before emerging as an adult wasp. During this time, the infected host appears to be under the control of the larvae. It'll thrash around fending off threats from other insects. It'll continue to stay alive and under the wasp's spell until it inevitably starves to death. An important ingredient to this whole operation is the wasp's venom. Venom in the animal kingdom is usually used for defense and offense, but not when it comes to the voodoo wasp. Their venom is used to manipulate physiology, metabolism, and behavior. This includes immune suppression, which can lead to the host's inability to fight back against the invaders inside its body. It'll also cause nerve cells to die and dysregulation of neurotransmitters like dopamine. In humans, low dopamine can be linked to Parkinson's disease, which can cause abnormalities in body movements. Okie doke, it's time to shift away from the brutality and focus on some of the positive things that these voodoo wasps can bring to our planet. Although they use some scary-looking procreating tactics, they are harmless to humans. They can actually be beneficial for our farms and gardens. You do that voodoo you do, voodoo wasp. Parasitoid wasps are being used as a form of natural insecticide. Since most target one insect species, we can introduce an abundance of wasps into areas that need some pest population control when it comes to invasive insects. From California's battle against the olive fruit fly back in 2009 to the current ongoing issues with crop-destroying mealybugs across Southeast Asia, voodoo wasps are getting the call. Who are you gonna call? Voodoo wasps! That doesn't quite have the same ring as Ghostbusters. If you thought this was weird, you haven't seen anything yet. Check out our video on a fungus that has mind-controlling powers. Turning insects into zombies is what voodoo wasps do, and that's what makes them crazy creatures. This emerald bug might look like a piece of fine jewelry, but take my word for it, you don't want this wasp anywhere near you, even if it would make a beautiful accessory. This wasp can control the mind of its victim. Meet the jewel wasp, known for their ability to hypnotize their prey. They specifically target cockroaches. It would be cool if the jewel wasp could harness telekinesis, but they do need to sting their prey to activate their mind control powers. First, the female wasp injects the cockroach with venom that paralyzes its legs. The cockroach will not go down without a fight. They'll kick and strike their opponent's head, and if they're strong enough, they might kill the wasp before she can administer another sting. But if the wasp wins this wrestling match, its second sting goes straight for the brain. With their stinger, they rummage around in the cockroach's head so they can accurately inject the brain. Ugh, that just gave me chills. The venom messes with the cockroach's neurotransmitters. They're not completely knocked out. They're just unable to react to their surroundings and make decisions for themselves. In this zombie state, the jewel wasp takes full advantage of them. They chew off their antennae and drink their nutrient-rich hemolymph, which is like the insect version of blood. They really know how to kick their victim when it's down, because if all that isn't enough, the wasp will pull the cockroach to her den like a dog on a leash. How humiliating. Luckily, the cockroach isn't conscious enough to be embarrassed. Scientists theorize that jewel wasp's venom has evolved to perform this specific function because they aren't physically equipped to carry the cockroach back home. So, they had to become nature's master manipulators instead. In the den, the wasp lays her eggs on their prey, where they take about 3 days to hatch. And I'll remind you, the cockroach is still alive for all of this. What a nightmare. The worst is yet to come. When the larvae hatch, they eat the cockroach from the inside out. Internal organs, abdomen, they all make for a delicious first meal. This is what finally puts the cockroach out of its misery. I never in my life thought I would feel this sorry for a cockroach. You might look at your apartment pests a little differently now. From the manipulative mind control to the blood drinking, this whole process is horrific. You could say jewel wasps are sadists and monsters, but you could never say that they aren't thrifty, because jewel wasps don't give cockroaches a traditional funeral. As they enter their pupal stage, the larvae huddle inside the carcass and use it to protect their cocoon. Every part of the cockroach kill serves a purpose. I guess it's nice that they don't die in vain, sort of sweet, in a messed up way. When the baby wasps are ready to enter the world, they bust through the cockroach shell, alien style, and the cycle repeats all over again. If any cockroaches are watching this video, stay alert out there. There are tons of wasps that have a similar strategy, and you can meet them in this video about voodoo wasps. Great minds think alike, I guess. Injecting cockroaches with zombifying venom and then using their bodies as nests for larvae is what jewel wasps do, and that's what makes them crazy creatures.